The wind howled through the empty desert land. Dust blew across the cracked ground. Darren, a human border scout, walked slowly, scanning the horizon. His scanner beeped. Something was close. He raised his binoculars and saw movement. Someone was walking toward the old checkpoint. As the figure got closer, Darren realized it wasn't just one person. There were two. A tall woman in a torn robe, holding the hand of a small child. Both looked tired, dirty, and scared. Darren reached for his weapon, just in case. Many strange things happened in the border zone. Bandits, smugglers, even alien spies. But as the woman and child got closer, he saw no weapons, no armor, just desperation in their eyes. The woman's steps slowed. Her legs shook. The child clung to her side. Then, just a few meters from Darren, the woman dropped to her knees. She didn't speak for a moment. Then, in a soft, broken voice, she said something Darren didn't expect. "Please, take me as your concubine. Just protect my daughter. Don't let them take her." Darren froze. What? He looked around. No one else was there. The woman was alien. He could see her pale bluish skin, the faint shimmer of royal tattoos across her arms, though most were hidden beneath dirt and torn cloth. Her ears were small and sharp, not human. The child beside her had similar features. Her eyes, wide and frightened, stared at Darren. Darren took a step forward. "Get up," he said. I don't want a concubine." The woman raised her head. Her face was beautiful, though bruised and tired. "They will find us. They will kill us. You don't understand. If I belong to you, they cannot take me. They follow laws, but only on paper. Please." Darren looked at the girl again. She was trembling. He had been a soldier once. He'd seen families torn apart. He'd seen war destroy homes, cities, even worlds. This woman didn't look like a fighter, but there was something strong in her voice, something royal. "Who was she? What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Cyrillus," she said, barely able to keep her eyes open. "And hers?" "Lyra. She's all I have." Darren sighed. He looked at the ruined sky, then at the endless desert behind her. Whoever they were running from, it wasn't safe to leave them here. "All right, come with me, but I'm not taking you as anything. You're not a servant. You're just under my protection. For now." Cyrillus bowed her head in silence. She stood slowly, lifting Lyra into her arms. Darren turned and began walking back to his hidden shelter. The woman and child followed behind, leaving behind nothing but footsteps in the dust. But something in his gut told him, this was no ordinary refugee. This woman carried a secret, and it might change everything. Darren led them through narrow mountain paths, careful not to leave tracks. His shelter was well hidden, an old military bunker built into the rocks, abandoned after the war. No one would find them there. At least, that's what he hoped. Inside, the air was dry but safe. He lit a small lantern and offered water to the woman and her daughter. The girl, Lyra, drank fast. Her hands shook. She hadn't had clean water in days. Cyrillus, the mother, drank slowly with grace, even in her condition. Darren watched her from the corner of his eye. She was calm, too calm for someone on the run. Her back was straight. Her hands were elegant. She used careful words, even when asking for something simple. She wasn't just a traveler. She had been raised with class, trained to speak and act like someone important. Darren finally asked, "You said they're hunting you. Who are they?" Cyrillus looked at Lyra, who had already fallen asleep on a blanket. Then she turned back to him. "I was a princess," she said softly. "Not anymore." Darren blinked. "A princess? From which world?" "Zerethii. You've heard of it." Darren nodded slowly. Everyone had heard of Zerethii. A rich planet, royal families, advanced cities. But a year ago, civil war broke out. One of the royal houses was destroyed in a surprise attack. "You're from the fallen house?" he asked. Cyrillus nodded. "My brother and father were killed. My guards were bribed. Only I escaped with Lyra. We fled in a stolen shuttle. Why here? This is the only place they won't look first. Human lands are messy, unpredictable. They fear humans." Darren gave a small smile. "That's not a bad idea. I said I was your concubine to protect myself. It's the only way they won't take me. If they think I belong to a human, their law won't allow them to claim me, not without starting a conflict." Darren leaned back. "I'm not the kind of man who keeps people like that." "I know," she said. "You helped me without asking anything. That tells me more than words." Silence filled the room. Then Darren stood and tossed her a rolled-up blanket. "Get some sleep. You're safe here." Cyrillus caught it, surprised by his kindness. "Thank you." He looked at her for a moment longer. "Don't thank me yet. If someone really is hunting you, they might find this place eventually." "I know," she whispered. "But tonight, I can sleep, knowing my daughter won't be taken." Darren turned off the lantern and sat near the door with his old rifle in hand. The princess lay beside her daughter, watching the human man who now stood between her and death. And for the first time in many nights, she let herself close her eyes. Morning light peeked through the cracks in the rocky ceiling. Darren was already awake, checking his sensors. No signs of movement outside. The shelter was still hidden. For now, they were safe. Behind him, he heard soft footsteps. It was Cyrillus. Her long hair was tied back now, her face washed. Even in simple clothes that Darren had given her, she moved with quiet grace. She knelt beside the small fire Darren had built. "Thank you, again." Darren nodded. "How's Lyra?" "Still sleeping. She finally feels warm." Darren looked at her. "You said you were a princess. I believe you. But I want to know the truth. All of it. Why are they chasing you? What really happened to your family?" Cyrillus took a deep breath. Her eyes turned distant, as if looking into another world. "My name is Cyrillus of House Velrin. My father was king of Zerathi Prime. We ruled for over 300 years, peacefully, with honor. But that made us weak in the eyes of others." "Who betrayed you?" Darren asked. "My sister," she said quietly. "She married a warlord from another planet and turned on us. She wanted power, even if it meant killing our blood." Darren was silent. He could see the pain in her eyes, but she didn't cry. She was too proud for that. "They came in the night," she continued. "My guards didn't fight. They were already bought. My brother was killed in front of me. My father was taken away. I don't even know if he's alive. I ran. I grabbed Lyra and ran through secret tunnels only a few of us knew." Darren listened carefully. It wasn't just a sad story. It was history. A royal house destroyed by betrayal. And somehow, this woman had survived it all. "They won't stop until I'm dead," Cyrillus said. "They'll hunt me to the edge of the stars." "Then you picked a good hiding place," Darren said. "Humans aren't exactly easy to deal with." She gave a small smile. "No, you're not. That's why I came here." He poured her a cup of warm broth and handed it to her. She took it with both hands, holding it like something precious. "I don't want your pity," she said. "I just want a chance to keep my daughter safe." "You have that," Darren said simply. For a moment, they sat in silence, a human and a fallen alien princess, brought together by war and survival. Then a small voice called out from the back room. "Mother." Cyrillus turned. "I'm here, Lyra." The girl walked in, rubbing her eyes. When she saw Darren, she hesitated. He smiled gently and waved. "It's okay," Cyrillus said. "He's helping us." Lyra nodded slowly and sat beside her mother. Darren stood. "We'll figure out a plan soon. But first, you both need to rest. And eat." As he walked away, Cyrillus watched him with thoughtful eyes. "This human, was not what she expected. The next few days passed quietly. Cyrillus helped around the shelter while Lyra explored the rocky paths nearby. Darren kept a close eye on the scanner, checking for signals or signs of movement. So far, no one had found them. But danger was always in the back of his mind. One night, as the stars blinked above the mountain, Darren sat outside with his rifle across his lap. The air was cold. Cyrillus stepped out, wrapped in a thick blanket, and sat beside him without a word. For a while, they just listened to the wind. "Do you miss your home?" Darren asked. Cyrillus nodded slowly. "Every moment. But my home is gone. Burned. Stolen." He looked at her. "Do you think your people will ever take it back?" She shook her head. "Not with me alive. My sister controls the army now. She called me a traitor, a coward for running. She told the galaxy I left my people behind." "But you didn't," Darren said. "You saved your daughter." Cyrillus gave a small smile. "To me, that's worth more than a throne." They sat in silence again. Then she asked, "Why did you help me, Darren? You didn't know me." He thought for a moment before answering. "I saw your daughter. Scared. Hungry. I've seen war ruin too many lives. I just couldn't leave you there. Simple as that." Cyrillus looked down. "I've met many humans in my life. Traitors, ambassadors, soldiers, but none like you." "I'm not special," he said. "You are," she replied softly. "Most men would have taken advantage of me. But you gave me safety, without asking for anything." Darren stood and walked to the edge of the cliff. The moonlight made his face look sharp, serious. "You asked me to take you as a concubine. That's not how I live. I don't own people. I don't believe in chains, visible or invisible." Cyrillus stood too, facing him. "Then what do you believe in?" "I believe in choices. You're not mine. You're not anyone's. You're free. But if you stay here, I'll protect you. That's my choice." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away. "You are a rare kind, Darren." He gave a small smile. "Yeah, I hear that sometimes." Just then, a loud beep came from the scanner inside the bunker. Darren rushed in. Cyrillus followed. A red light blinked on the screen. A ship had passed through the upper atmosphere. Unidentified. No response code. Darren's face went serious. "They're searching." Cyrillus froze. "They found this planet." "Maybe not us yet," Darren said, "but they're close." Lyra ran in from the back room. "What's happening, Mama?" Cyrillus picked her up and held her tight. Darren grabbed his rifle. "Get some rest. We'll need a plan tomorrow." As the lights dimmed and silence returned, Cyrillus knew one thing clearly. She trusted this human. And maybe he was the only chance they had left. The next morning, Darren was already awake, standing outside with his binoculars. The mountain was quiet, but he didn't trust the silence anymore. Inside the shelter, Cyrillus was brushing Lyra's hair. The little girl smiled more these days. Her cheeks had color again. She no longer jumped at every sound. Slowly, safety was returning to her world. "Do you think he'll teach me to hunt?" Lyra asked suddenly. Cyrillus smiled softly. "Maybe, if you ask nicely." Darren came in just then. He raised an eyebrow. "Teach you what?" Lyra ran to him. "To hunt. I want to learn how to survive like you." He looked at Cyrillus. She gave a small nod. "All right, kid," Darren said. "But first, you learn how to move quietly. No stomping around like a wild buffalo." "What's a buffalo?" Lyra asked, tilting her head. Darren chuckled. "I'll show you in a book later." Later that day, Darren took them into the forest trail behind the bunker. He showed Lyra how to follow tracks, how to stay low, and how to listen to the wind. Cyrillus watched from a distance. For the first time in many weeks, she smiled without worry. That evening, she joined Darren by the fire. He handed her a bowl of soup. "Not royal food, but it's warm," he joked. I've eaten worse, she said, taking a bite. I once had to pretend to enjoy a raw sea bug during a royal feast. He made a face. Sounds chewy. She laughed softly. It surprised both of them. Darren looked at her. You laugh more now. Cyrillus nodded. You gave us a moment to breathe. You gave Lyra space to be a child again. They sat together quietly. The flames flickered between them. You're different from what I was taught, Cyrillus said. Humans. Yes, we were told your kind was wild. Dangerous. No honor. But you have more honor than anyone I've met. Darren shrugged. I've met good and bad on both sides. Cyrillus stared into the fire. I used to believe in bloodlines. That being royal made me better. But now, I see. Real strength isn't in titles. It's in actions. Darren said nothing. He didn't need to. Suddenly, the scanner beeped again. A faint signal. Closer than yesterday. Darren's calm face turned serious. They're narrowing the search. Cyrillus stood. What should we do? We wait for night. Then we move. I know an old tunnel system in the valley. They won't expect us to go underground. Cyrillus placed her hand on his arm. Thank you. He looked down at her hand, but didn't move away. Don't thank me yet, he said. We still have a long road ahead. As darkness fell, the three of them packed what they could. Lyra held her small toy. Cyrillus wrapped a scarf around her daughter's shoulders. They didn't know what waited ahead. But they knew one thing. They were no longer strangers. They were becoming something more. Night had fallen. The stars above were hidden by clouds, and the mountain air had turned cold. Darren led Cyrillus and Lyra through the narrow path behind the shelter. He carried his rifle, always checking the scanner in his hand. Cyrillus held Lyra close as they walked. The little girl didn't complain. She was brave, just like her mother. They reached the old valley tunnel just before midnight. It was hidden behind thick bushes and rocks. Few knew about it. It had once been used by smugglers during the war. This tunnel goes deep, Darren whispered. It'll take us far away from the scanner's range. Cyrillus nodded. Let's go. They moved carefully through the dark tunnel. Darren's flashlight lit the way, casting long shadows on the stone walls. The air smelled of earth and time. After 2 hours of walking, they stopped to rest. Lyra was asleep in her mother's arms. She's strong, Darren said softly. She has to be, Cyrillus replied. She saw her uncle fall. She heard the screams. I told her not to look, but she remembers. Darren sat beside her. She'll heal. You both will. Suddenly, the scanner beeped again. Darren's eyes widened. They've entered the mountain area. Cyrillus stood quickly. How? We moved so fast. They have better tracking now. They might have picked up traces from the old shelter. He turned to her. You need to keep going. Take Lyra and move forward through the tunnel. I'll stay here. No, Cyrillus said, her voice firm. We don't believe you. I'll slow them down, Darren said. Buy you time. That's the only way. You'll be killed. Darren looked at her, his eyes calm but serious. Maybe. But if they get past me, they'll kill you both. I won't let that happen. Cyrillus reached for his arm. Darren, I made a choice the day I brought you in. This is part of that. For a moment, she just stared at him. Then she nodded slowly. Come back to us. I will, he said with a half-smile. I'm not easy to kill. Darren placed a small map chip in her hand. Follow this route. You'll reach a safe zone by sunrise. Wait for me there. She pressed her forehead lightly against his, a Zerethi gesture of respect and trust. You are more than a protector, Darren. You are a good man. He watched her disappear into the tunnel with Lyra. Then he turned back toward the entrance. His fingers tightened around the rifle. His eyes sharpened. Minutes later, he heard them. Footsteps, quiet voices in a foreign tongue. They were here. But they weren't ready for a human who had nothing left to lose. Darren crouched behind a pile of rocks, listening. The footsteps grew louder. There were at least 5 of them, maybe more, moving quickly. They spoke in a harsh, clipped language that Darren didn't recognize, but the tone was clear enough. These were soldiers, not travelers. He gripped his rifle tighter, his eyes scanning the dark shapes moving toward the entrance of the tunnel. They were close now, too close. Darren's heart raced, but his hands were steady. He had faced battles before. But this was different. He wasn't fighting for a cause. He was fighting to protect 2 people who had trusted him. There was no going back. He peeked around the rocks. The soldiers were almost at the mouth of the tunnel, their weapons drawn. They were searching for anything, any sign of life, any clue that would lead them to their target. Darren's mind raced. He couldn't engage them all head-on. He had to be smart. He waited for the right moment. One of the soldiers stepped forward, his flashlight scanning the ground. Darren's chance. He aimed quickly, the rifle in his hands moving like an extension of his body. The first shot rang out, silent in the mountain air. The soldier fell, his body crumpling to the ground without a sound. The others didn't notice at first, but the second shot hit another soldier in the shoulder. The man dropped to the ground, shouting in pain. Ambush. One of the soldiers yelled. Take cover. Darren didn't waste time. He moved fast, darting between rocks and trees. He used the terrain to his advantage, staying out of their line of sight. The soldiers were disoriented, trying to figure out where the shots were coming from. Another soldier appeared from the shadows, his gun raised. Darren shot first, hitting the man in the leg. He collapsed, cursing under his breath. 3 left. Darren's mind was sharp, calculating. He knew they wouldn't back down easily. They were professionals. But so was he. He dropped low, crawling behind another boulder. The soldiers were close now, shouting orders to each other. They knew they were being hunted, and that made them dangerous. Darren had to finish this quickly. One of the soldiers moved toward him, stepping into the open. Darren took his shot, hitting the soldier square in the chest. The man fell without a sound. 2 left. The last 2 soldiers were smarter. They split up, trying to surround him. Darren's heart beat louder in his chest, but he didn't panic. He had trained for moments like this. As one soldier moved around the boulder, Darren leaped up, using the last of his strength to tackle the man. They struggled for a moment, but Darren's grip was stronger. He knocked the soldier out cold with a quick punch. 1 soldier remained. Darren could see him now, backed against the entrance of the tunnel. The man's eyes were wide with fear. He had no idea who or what he was dealing with. Darren raised his rifle, aiming straight at the soldier's chest. Tell them you failed, Darren said coldly. The soldier nodded quickly, backing away in surrender. Darren didn't hesitate. He pulled the trigger, sending the soldier to the ground. Darren stood, breathing heavily, his body bruised but alive. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and checked his rifle. His plan had worked. But the battle wasn't over yet. He turned and ran back toward the tunnel entrance, hoping Cyrillus and Lyra were still safe. Darren moved quickly, his body sore from the fight, but adrenaline kept him going. He couldn't afford to waste time. The soldiers might not be the only ones looking for Cyrillus and Lyra. If the tracking system was still working, it wouldn't take long for others to catch up. The tunnel stretched ahead, narrow and dark. He reached the entrance, where the faint glow of the tunnel's exit marked the way. His heart pounded in his chest. He had to get to Cyrillus before the soldiers did. He didn't expect to find anyone near the entrance, but as he neared the opening, something caught his eye. A small black device was wedged between the rocks. A signal jammer. Darren knew exactly what it meant. They were trying to block any tracking signals. Darren crouched down, carefully picking up the jammer. He knew this tech. Whoever had placed it here wanted to make sure no one could follow them through the mountains. But it was broken. Half of the device was damaged, likely from the soldiers' attacks. The rest of the signal was still active. He checked the device and found a message flashing on the screen. A short, simple code that didn't make sense at first. But Darren was familiar with this kind of encryption. He pulled out his own communicator, connecting it to the device. As the device cracked open, the message finally became clear. Cyrillus, your sister's orders. She seeks to destroy you. Protect the girl. Do not trust anyone. They are watching. Darren's mind raced. He stared at the message, piecing together the puzzle. It wasn't just the soldiers who were after Cyrillus. Someone else, someone close to her, was pulling the strings. This was bigger than he realized. Cyrillus had no idea that her own family was after her. But the message didn't just warn her. It also told Darren something important. If they were watching, he needed to act fast. He tucked the device back in his pack and ran down the path. His thoughts raced. He had to warn Cyrillus. She needed to know the truth. But how could he protect her when someone from her own bloodline wanted her gone? When he finally reached the place where he had left them, he found the entrance to the tunnel was sealed. A large stone had been rolled over it, blocking their escape. Darren cursed under his breath. He checked the ground for signs of movement. Footprints. They were fresh. Cyrillus and Lyra had already moved deeper into the tunnels. Damn it, he muttered. The last thing he wanted was for them to get caught in another trap. He reached for his weapon, checking the remaining ammo. It wasn't much, but it had to be enough. Darren quickly scanned the area, looking for another way to follow them. He knew time was running out. The soldiers were still out there. And now, there was something far worse waiting in the shadows. Betrayal. He headed deeper into the tunnel, determined to find Cyrillus and Lyra before it was too late. Darren moved deeper into the underground tunnel, his footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The air grew cooler, and the darkness seemed to press in from all sides. His eyes adjusted to the dim light from his flashlight as he navigated the winding passages. He couldn't shake the feeling that Cyrillus and Lyra were still close. He had to catch up to them before the soldiers, or worse, found them first. But as he walked, his mind kept returning to the message from the jammer. They are watching. Who was watching them? Was it really Cyrillus' sister who had ordered the attack, or was there something even bigger going on? Darren didn't have the answers. All he knew for sure was that if he didn't find them soon, everything they'd been through would be for nothing. Finally, he came to a small open area within the tunnel. There, he found Cyrillus and Lyra. Cyrillus was sitting on a rock, her back straight, as always, but her eyes looked tired. Lyra was curled up beside her, clutching her mother's arm as she slept. Darren stepped forward, his boots clicking against the stone floor. Cyrillus looked up at him, her expression unreadable. "You found us," she said, her voice soft but relieved. "I found the signal jammer," Darren said. "It was broken. Someone's been trying to block our movement. But that's not the worst part. I found a message. Your sister, she's the one behind this. She wants you dead." Cyrillus' face tightened. I never wanted to believe it. I didn't want to think she would go this far. Darren sat beside her, his eyes scanning the tunnel entrance behind them. "She's not just after you. She's after everything you represent. The throne, the power. And she's not working alone. There's someone else. Someone in your court who's playing both sides." Cyrillus turned to him, her face pale. "But who? I trusted them all. I don't know yet, but we have to move fast. Whoever's behind this has the resources to make us disappear, and they won't stop until they have what they want." The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken fear, but Cyrillus' eyes hardened with determination. "Then we fight. I won't run anymore. I will take back my throne. For Lyra." Darren nodded. "You're not alone in this." Cyrillus stood up, her posture as regal as ever. "We need to send a message to the galaxy. If we can broadcast to the outer systems, we can warn everyone. Let them know what's happening." Darren hesitated. "You think they'll listen? After everything that's happened?" "I don't care if they listen or not. she said firmly. But I'll make sure they know the truth. This ends now. She pulled out a small portable transmitter from her bag. I've kept this hidden for months. I knew I might need it. Darren looked at the device, then back at her. All right, let's do it. Cyrillus set the transmitter up quickly, her hands moving with purpose. The machine hummed to life, and a small green light blinked on. They were ready. But as the signal began to reach out across the galaxy, Darren felt a chill run down his spine. Something was coming, and it wasn't just the soldiers. The transmitter beeped quietly as the signal began to spread. Cyrillus stared at the blinking green light, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. The message was out there now, reaching distant systems. The galaxy would know the truth, but the real question was, would it be enough to save her? Darren stood beside her, keeping a watchful eye on the tunnel entrance. The silence around them felt heavy, as though the world itself was holding its breath. Is it done? Darren asked quietly. Cyrillus nodded, still staring at the transmitter. It's done. The galaxy has the message. Now they know what my sister is capable of. It's up to them whether they act on it. But we still have to deal with her, Darren said, his voice low. And whoever else is helping her. Cyrillus turned to face him, her expression hardening. I won't run again. I've done enough of that. Darren looked at her, a small smile tugging at his lips. That's good. Running won't fix anything now. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything they had been through hanging in the air between them. Cyrillus glanced down at Lyra, who was still asleep, curled up against her mother's side. She had come so far to protect her daughter, and now, it seemed, the final battle was upon them. I've lost so much already, Cyrillus whispered, her voice shaky. But I'm not going to lose her. Not after everything we've been through. Darren nodded. You won't. Not as long as I'm here. Cyrillus looked up at him, her eyes softening. I know you've already done so much for us. You've saved us more times than I can count. But I don't want to be your burden. You're not a burden, Darren said firmly. You and Lyra are family. I'm not going anywhere. For a moment, Cyrillus didn't speak. She simply stared at him, her gaze searching, as if weighing something in her mind. Then she stood and held out her hand to him. I've been a princess. I've been treated like I was more than anyone else. But I see now, real power is not in titles. It's in the people you trust, in the bonds you build. Darren hesitated for a moment, then took her hand. I never wanted a princess, but I'll fight for you, Cyrillus. For you and Lyra. Cyrillus squeezed his hand gently, her voice strong. I'm not your concubine. I never was. I am your equal. Darren's eyes widened for a moment, but then he smiled. A real, honest smile. You're right, he said quietly. You've always been my equal. Cyrillus lowered her hand and looked down at Lyra, who was starting to stir. We had a lot of work ahead of us. My sister won't stop until she's sure we're gone. But now we have a plan, and we have each other. Darren looked at her, his expression resolute. Then let's finish this, together. As they walked toward the tunnel's exit, ready to face whatever came next, Cyrillus felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had a new purpose now. Not as a princess or a pawn, but as a mother, a survivor, and an equal. And with Darren by her side, she knew she could take on whatever came next.